Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 21. HHHH Herbert's 100 Harem and Harriet the Spy. This can't be so easy, Mr. Heron states, and Herbert shrugs. I doubt it is. Her personality seemingly completely changed, and she laid all the blame at the feet of a person conveniently dead and therefore unable to protest or be taken in for questioning. That she did. There's no way this is, which is why we're going to charge her for her other crimes, and then we're going to use that time to keep poking in. She's admitted to being part of this and pointed towards another suspect. We have more than one set of eyes and can look into more than one thing at a time. Herbert says, we need to get everything there is to know about Miss Mariandia Lowbridge, but that does not mean that Miss Tiaria is going to get any less scrutiny. Good, good. Now what? Keep moving, keep checking in, and we've hit the wind down. Our frantic search found results, and we have a lot more information than we expected. So we need to go through it all, he says, and there's a moment where he cracks his neck. I haven't had enough sleep of late, and caffeine will just wind me up like mad. All right, back to the lion's den to tell everyone the good news before they try and extract it or something. And the fact that almost everyone we've caught has some major crimes attached to them. Inform the relevant authorities and only take action against these parties if their crimes affect undaunted citizens or interests. There's going to be so many people looking for their pound of flesh in this debacle that these criminal fools will resemble skeletons more than anything by the time everyone is done. Herbert notes, we'll have to settle for marrow if we want our own piece of them, won't we? Mr. Heron remarks. Yes, we will, Herbert says. Now, his communicator goes off. You're out of time, little man. I'm in charge now, Mr. Heron states, and Herbert gives him an unimpressed look. Oh, scary. Now get. You're on break. Yes, sir, Herbert says. We really have a rash of overworkers, don't we? Mr. Heron states as a figure comes up behind him. Yes, we do, sir. Now, if you'd come with me, I was just handed a very interesting folder, sir, and I think we should both go over it. Officer Blanche offers, and Mr. Heron nods before following his assistant out. Hopefully he won't get eaten alive by the council forces or his presence misinterpreted. I'm off shift, not hurt, so... He turns around. You are supposed to be heading home, Mr. Heron notes. I think that a few seconds where I am recorded saying that I'm fine and merely have come to the end of my shift rather than falling foul of some malefactor would be wise. Keep the more panic-prone among our allies from doing something stupid, Herbert says. Ah, yes, it would. Thank you for it, by the way. Now go home. You are off duty, Officer Blanche says, and Herbert pauses for a moment and remembered that Blanche is literally recording everything at all times. Right, have a good day, you two. Best of luck with the madness, Herbert says as he turns around and then, stopping by his office, divests himself of all the more sensitive things and keeps the things for his own safety or in case he's reactivated due to an emergency. He slips out and stretches a bit as he walks through the ship, takes a right, passes by a series of guards that he salutes and is saluted by, and then walks into a portal elsewhere. Safely on the other side, he gets out of the way of the thoroughfare and slaps himself to wake up a little further. He looks around and then calls home. Or more specifically, he calls Boritsi as she's taken the responsibilities of first wife, and he's worked it out with everyone that she's who he goes to if the group needs anything. It had been a several-hour-long discussion, mostly because they were still expecting to take care of him and not the other way around. Oh, thank goodness, I was worried you'd be working overtime, she says right away. Nope, Mr. Heron was eager to toss me out when it was his turn to be in charge. Herbert says with a smile, Is there anything you want or need before I get home? No, our family's brought everything we need. We're trying a lot of traditional meals tonight, mixing them with some of those synthetic human spices to see what's good, she says. Just get home. I've been worried. I know something big has been happening. I'll be there shortly. I'm on the spire, just need to go up three levels, he says. See you soon, she says, and he starts moving. He goes for the jump pads before anything else, and by sheer instinct, when an unsavory presence rushes up, he pulls out a plasma pistol and primes it. The thing starts growling, as all Jek Tech does, and they veer away, as if they suddenly decided to not get a hole blasted into them. There is another force rushing up, and he turns the weapon to find that a Feli woman is now taking frantic pictures of him and letting out a little squeals as he sighs. Yes, work it. Work that disappointment and danger. Oh my goddess, you're so adorable. She gushes at him, and he deactivates and then holsters the weapon before moving on. His family was right. Being a little kid is right in the danger zone for him. Yes, yes, acting so mature, but so... He ignores the camera woman, and he sighs as he senses several figures moving into the area. And when a Kruger woman punches the ground in front of him, the pistol is back out and shoved into her face. He walks around her as the weapon starts growling, and she backs off. I need to get home now, he mutters to himself, and he picks up the pace. The gel figure of All Lady is flitting around the elevator as they climb upwards and upwards as they head upwards together. After they reach level 15, they leave, and All Lady rushes ahead to flit from building to building as she takes in the cleaner air and then rushes into the light that pours down from above. Ah, there's our... What's she doing? Harriet asks as All Lady expands in the sunlight and grows upwards and upwards until she can reach the next level from the floor and grabs on to reach out across to the spire opposite and keeps growing. The sensors on the cars prevents any accidents as All Lady starts showing just how much gel she actually has as she stretches upwards and upwards and upwards and climbs from spire to spire as a gigantic entity. Crap, Harriet mutters. Jurgen with me. Everyone else back to the ship. She races forward, and the autopiloted air car opens its door for her, and both she and Jurgen pile inside. She activates its engine and gives chase to the now manic Slobe woman. Did she give any hint to this? Harriet demands. No, but she was clearly forcing herself out of depression and keeping herself contained. There's no telling what's been bottled up or repressed during all this time, Jurgen says. Well, hopefully she doesn't cause even more of a panic or... Shit, Harriet notes as several people start taking pot shots at All Lady, who seems to barely notice, as her core is tucked away and the gel clearly can't feel pain. She moved faster and faster, climbing higher and higher as a gigantic figure of dark blue gel that is now easily so tall that she's easily as tall as 3 levels at once. She climbs upwards and upwards until she reaches the top of the spire and reaches upwards into the upper atmosphere, looking upwards past the plates and directly at the star Centris Primaris. Then she just goes still, standing upwards, hundreds of stories tall and made of transparent blue gel. So thinned out, she's no longer dark blue, and just staring, feeling the wind on her and drinking the thinner, colder but fast-moving air as she just stares at the heavens above. Not a lot of air up here, Harriet says as they fly up to her level, ahead of the police, but not by much. If you have some way to get her to stop this, do it now. Hold your breath, Jurgen says, and she activates the protections on her belt buckle. Jurgen opens his door and leans out. All Lady, can you hear me? Jurgen calls out, and she doesn't seem to notice at first. Then her form shifts. She didn't turn. She just reshaped so she was facing him instead of away. Jurgen, this is wonderful. I'm finally free. I can feel it. Clean, delicious air, sweeter than sugar. Wonderful pure sunlight as gentle as a lover's touch. She gushes. You're causing a panic. You're gigantic, and there's no telling how the oncoming officers will respond. People are already shooting at you. I can barely feel them. Their petty weapons mean nothing. Nothing compared to just finally being outside and being able to feel things again, All Lady says. Did you know that the air down in the bottom 10 isn't actually any dirtier or anything? It's just that Centris normally has such frequent winds that still air by compare feels reflexively wrong to most. While interesting, that has very little to do with the fact that you're so large that you're frightening people and they're already attacking you, Jurgen pleads to her as he holds out his hand. Please, before they call in starfighters or artillery to deal with you. A massive ship lowers down from above. The fact it's on a similar scale to All Lady makes the situation downright surreal as she reaches out to it as if in a dream. All Lady, Jurgen calls out, and she pauses. My name is Diana Dewdrop, she says before pulling away from the ship, and her whole body shivers as if she shook herself. Then she seemingly wakes from her trance and looks around in seeming shock. Oh, sorry. Then she shoots her gel into the aircar past Jurgen in a massive torrent of gel that doesn't touch him, but doesn't seem to end. You don't mind, do you? No, but for pity's sake, woman, do you really think we'd go through so much effort to help you just to have you throw it away? You want to stretch out? Let's find a place you can do it without scaring billions of people, Harriet demands as she pilots the aircar down so that All Lady can press more of herself in faster and avoid being shot up to nothingness. Jurgen slams the door shut when she's all in and they dive away and towards the Dauntless. Hey, who's in charge of? Oh, hey, Blanche, I need you to get the forces after me off. All Lady had a bit of a reaction to fresh air and sunlight and couldn't stop herself from reaching up and scaring the ever-loving hell out of Centris. Mind informing people that's it, in fact, not illegal to reach upwards? I'll try, but she seriously gave a lot of people a scare with what she did. Just tell me if they suddenly start firing on you, Officer Blanche says. Who's that? One of the two people currently running intelligence. And the other is that Jameson person? The adorable-looking little kid? He's on break now. There's always two heads in charge and Herbert is the only one with a public name, Jurgen says. By the way, why do you have a puppet of Stream in your pocket? It never came up, but it bugged me, All Lady asks. I was piloting a synth body before things went odd and I was sent to where you found us. The person I was speaking with demanded to speak face-to-face, expecting to find a woman and got a lot more man than she was expecting. All Lady giggles. So what next? That depends on you entirely. What do you want next? Do you just want to leave when the heat dies down? Go to another planet entirely? Sign up, run away? Your life is yours, Harriet says, and All Lady considers openly. I don't know. It's been only a short time since I actually did something that wasn't just trying to stop things from getting worse. To say nothing of actually not feeling like everything can suddenly get worse, All Lady says before growing silent. Harriet suddenly jolts the car to the side to avoid a laser blast. Oh, for the love of God! Harriet grits before slamming the accelerator. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 22. HEH, Herbert's 100 Harem and Harriet the Spy. Good evening, ladies. I am Mr. Heron. You may refer to me as Mr. Heron. Due to time being a thing, young Master Jameson has gone home. He is, after all, very physically young and requires the appropriate amount of rest after all, Mr. Heron says as he enters the room. I am his replacement. Any questions so far? Did you use a laser to make sure everything on you was level? A ruler, actually, Mr. Heron states. Now then, I assume you all want to know the fullness of what young Master Jameson uncovered from his initial interrogation of Miss Tiaria Elsorana. She gave us a name and motivation, however she did so after breaking down unusually quickly. And the name she gave us is of a conveniently dead woman who cannot refute the claims. And what did she claim? A council representative asks, and Mr. Heron holds up his communicator and sets a trinity of files to be openly available. Everyone's device dings a bit to let them know that they've received them. 3 videos for your perusal, the interrogation, a summation of what we found blood metal to do to a poor slobe woman we found, and later caused an accidental disturbance, and a reassurance from young Master Jameson that he is fine and simply came to the end of his workday. Poor slobe woman, you don't mean that towering giant that nearly tore an entire frigate out of the sky with her hands alone before compacting into a car and vanishing? We do. Incidentally, I have several suggestions to improve the aim of the local militia forces, primarily by not acting like a child. There is no excuse to miss with a laser of all things, Mr. Heron notes. I'm sorry, who are you again? Command of Undaunted Intelligence shifts frequently, and there is always an assistant ready to take over at a moment's notice. I am Herbert's assistant. He is the only individual with his identity publicly known, Mr. Heron says. But we can see your face. You can see a face, but I assure you it is not my face. It is simply the one I am using for the moment. Because that wasn't the creepiest possible answer. It's an exquisitely made latex mask that covers up my skin coloration, alters my apparent bone structure, coupled with contact lenses and a voice modulator, and I am completely unrecognizable from who I truly am. Now, are there further questions? So who are you? Who I am is classified. Not even young Master Jameson knows it, and I am one of his closest advisors and confidants. I am the second opinion whenever he makes a choice. I am the judge of his mental wellness when on the job. Yet he does not recognize me when I am outside of this mask, Mr. Heron states. Then he adjusts the sleeve of his coat a touch and rolls his neck. Now then, I believe we were working to organize a full search of Centris to ensure all traces of blood metal were accommodated for. After all, if you would pay attention to the second video, you will see what it can do to a slobe woman. I shudder to think of what it would do to something like a Gravia or Lidris, or even imagine something like a more predatory species like a Zedin or a Pook with some kind of horrific effect amplified upon them. He observes the effects of his words on the crowd and smiles tightly. Yes, indeed, a planetary panic ensued from the sheer relief of a single slobe that was suffering under the effects of blood metal. I dare say that we should keep this substance highly illegal and warn the public that all known uses of it have horrific effects on the health of the subject, Mr. Heron advises. Debate starts loudly. Mr. Heron debates using an air horn. He does. So this is the big mysterious ship of the Dauntless? I was expecting something more exotic, All Lady aka Diana Dewdrop says as she looks around. They had shaken the militia pursuit easily enough. Heron had gotten them off their backs and in the clear. Come on, this way so we can give you another look of health. You're clearly excited and healthier, but Dr. Ginn is promising me gruesome death if I don't get a follow-up on your recovery, Harriet says as she looks over her communicator and the series of messages she's been getting. Many of them about how her damn incompetence is going to undo all his hard work and the piddling efforts of Drs. Lorne and Howard. Even in simple text, the man was mean. Diana is shown through the ship and into a medical bay where the doctors are all there with another giant slow-braided surgical bed ready for her. Dr. Ginn smells like he just went through an entire crate of smokes in the time it had taken for them to approach and clearly had a pack in his breast pocket. Now then, you've had some time with the Axiom and we need to make absolutely sure things ray clear, so he begins to say before Diana pours out her core into the surgical bed without hesitation. I trust you. Good. We're doctors. That's a big thing for us, Dr. Ginn says as he walks around and examines the crater. This is filling in very quickly, very smoothly as well. You're fully incorporating the bumps and nodules? I am. That is healthy, but also has the side effect that any child you break away will be of similar stature to yourself. That's fine. I plan to party around for a few years and enjoy myself before settling to have a daughter or a son. I expect I'll be sticking around a lot of men in the near future, Diana says. Oh, I take it we left a good impression then, Dr. Howard states as he takes a sample of her freshly produced gel to quickly study with Dr. Lorne. Let's see. I'm not in pain. I don't have an all-consuming feeling of doom. I can relax for the first time in literal years, and I've felt sunlight and tasted fresh air for the first time in just as long. So yes, very good impression. Still, full incorporation of the nodules on your core is a big step. Are you certain it's wise? Dr. Ginn asks. Okay. I need to put back my puppet and start on my report. But what are they talking about? You're absorbing the bumps? Each one of those nodules has a random assortment of vital organs required for a slobe to survive. Once enough of the nodule is formed, it begins to move away from the main body of the slobe, forming more and more of the vital organs until it has all of them, at which point it moves further out and then severs entirely, creating new life. However, a multi-slobe is what happens when this process is disrupted and the parent is the survivor, creating extra redundant organs and even brain matter for the parent. H-loshabs are the result of this disruption, destroying the parent instead. Rarer but not unknown, both are considered terrible luck in many slobe societies. H-loshab literally translating to deathborn, and there is an entire whirlwind of slurs for a multi-slobe such as our patient here. Most of them translating to things like baby eater or death mother or the like, or falco, Dr. Ginn says as he quickly measures the nodules and nods. I'm incorporating them into myself fully. I tried with that horrible metal in me, but it really, really hurt. Incorporating them means that there's less risk at the next butting. Each bump would have gotten in the way a little. A butting is best done from a perfectly round surface. And there are rounder asteroids than me now, Diana says before her gel form smiles. Still, I can now. I'm healing. You're recovering at a remarkable pace, not in the category of a healing coma, but certainly faster than normal. You know the meditations? I do. I looked up every technique I could to try and heal myself, but none of them worked beyond mental tricks to stay calm and focused. That horrible metal, it twisted and grew stronger on every axiom effect I tried to use. So I had to look for different answers. She says, so you're using a regenerative meditation. Good. Those are well understood. Many higher-ranking individuals avail themselves of the technique to rejuvenate themselves without security risk. Gin notes, wait, you're meditating? Now, were you meditating when you did the whole reach for the heavens routine? I was. The thing about developing multiple brains is that it's very, very easy to concentrate on many things at once. And she has at least 5 fully developed neural nodes, to say nothing of partially developed ones. Short of a Lidris, this woman is hands down the best multitasker in the galaxy. Dr. Gin knows as he brings out a light and turns it on. The sheer brightness of the small hand light would be enough to turn midnight into midday, and he shines it directly on Diana's core. She shudders a little. Oh, don't be a baby. You don't have any organs vulnerable to this kind of light. Still uncomfortable and unexpected, Diana protests. 3, 2, 1, done. Feel better now? Dr. Gin asks before reaching into a small bowl and tossing a handful of hard candies into the gel in her core. There, that should make baby feel better. Are you always this much of an asshole? Diana asks in shock. My job is to heal the sick, not pander to the healthy. You are healthy. Get out of my medical bay, Dr. Gin says. Calm the fuck down, Gin. We're still testing, Dr. Howard says, and Gin huffs. Oh, go suck a fag if you're so pissy. What? What was so funny? Diana asks. He used a weird word, but he used an English word that has 2 distinct meanings. In England, a fag is slang for a cigarette, a mild narcotic consumed by smoking. In America, fag is slang for homosexual. So Dr. Gin is a homosexual? Can I watch? The room dissolves into laughter as Gin starts cursing under his breath. What? Dr. Howard was insulting Dr. Gin. The man is straight. At least I think I have scalpels in arm's reach and am one of the best dart players on the ship. And I have skin so dense you'd need monomolecular scalpels to bleed me. I'm a doctor. I know how to take a man apart. And I'm a soldier. I'm practiced in taking a man apart. Jurgen counters. Don't tempt me, you oversized anatomy dummy. Dr. Howard? Dr. Lorne? Well? No chemical imbalances detected, Dr. Howard states. No organic imbalances detected in the newly produced gel. Full recovery. Already, Dr. Lorne adds. Good. Now out. Or do you need more candy, little girl? Little girl? My smallest body part is... You know what / no, not worth it. I'm leaving, doctor. Thank you for helping me, but I'm out of here. You're in my hospital when you're healthy and not a doctor, cleaner, or nurse, which means you might end up in the way of someone fighting for their life and desperate for help. So yes, leave, now. You're healthy, and so thoroughly not my concern, I can't legally give a shit about you for... He checks the nearest clock. 3.5 more hours. Now get out. A few moments later, Harriet, Jurgen, and Diana are all outside the medical bay, and the giant slobe, now writ small, is in mild shock. He is really dedicated, she notes. He is. He's the kind of doctor who's willing and able to track you down, pin you to the wall, and force you to take your medicine. Because you're his patient, and you're not allowed to die, Jurgen says. You know him from before, don't you? I do. I was a sampler for one of the early stills on the ship. There was an impurity in the drink that we didn't detect with our slapdash tools, and he was forced to make me vomit while in zero gravity so I wouldn't die of whatever the hell I got. He spoke a lot, but only every 10 words had something to do with what was wrong with me. The rest was how much of an idiot I was, and he said enough for a university lecture. He explains and Harriet snorts. Well, as amusing as that is, we now have the all-important questions as to What the hell are you still doing here? Get away from the doorway. You don't want some idiot to trip on you when they're trying to get help, you trio of twits, Dr. Ginn demands as he sticks his head out the doorway and rants at them. Let's go down to intelligence and hammer things out from there. It's close to the legal division, so if you want help in that way, we can give it to you easier, and both Harriet and I need to report it anyways, Jurgen says. We'll probably run into Blanche. Heron is likely facing off with whoever or whatever Herbert was dealing with at the time, Harriet remarks. I think he was facing a huge amount of representatives from the different organizations we're trying to work with in the biggest and dumbest pissing contest on Centris, Jurgen says. Yeah, jurisdictions may exist for a reason, but when others don't respect those boundaries, everyone gets pissy, Harriet says. So, what happens with me? Diana asks. Whatever you want. You feel like being a soldier? I honestly think I need more of a break than anything else. But I need money, and, I was a courier before everything went to hell. Do you have need of that? Always. Sure, we can teleport things, but doing that around a base is just inefficient. If you're willing to be a runner, then you go all over the place, and people are almost always happy to see you. I like the sound of that, Diana notes. Iana. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 23. HFY, Herbert's 100 Harem and Harriet the Spy. He was just getting his shoes off when he felt someone teleport in and was already grinding the growling pistol into their side even as they formed. He doesn't even look in their direction. The slight intake of breath is familiar, and he pulls the weapon away. Don't startle me. It's unhealthy, he chides the good cloner. My apologies. I just came across a very fascinating discovery with the blood metal and wanted to make sure you had it. Dr. Ivan Grace says, handing over a folder, and Herbert skims it. His eyebrows go up, and he nods. Okay, good to know, but my shift ended maybe 15 minutes ago. You need to get this to Mr. Heron or failing that Officer Blanche. Either will do, and asking an intelligence will get you to them in moments. Ah, right. There's another reason I wanted to talk with you. And that would be? I was wondering if my granddaughters could visit. They're very interested in Zidin, Yaoya, and think Paris are adorable. If you want to set up a play date, then the answer is yes. So long as they leave the glitter at home. I'll do my best. That's all I can ask. Give me a time and I'll tell if UF works, all right? Sounds good, Dr. Grace says, and they shake hands before Herbert hands back the folder, and Ivan is gone in another teleport. I still can't believe that man went through what he did without becoming a supervillain or something. Seriously, he could take a planet and prefers to just study. Herbert notes to himself as he tucks his shoes away and starts into the embassy again. A light scuttling and a tiny figure that peers around a corner is his first greeter. Tan and bright orange, the little Paris rushes up to him, and he offers an arm to the little thing. He pulls out a small piece of jerky, and the thrilled little scavenger starts eating with a gusto. So it turns out the scary metal we found picks up all the signs of aging at 4 to 5 times the standard rate, which means the oldest piece we have isn't as old as we thought it was, he tells the tiny creature. Isn't that funny? Of course the tail, fur-covered, and borderline helpless crustacean says nothing. It's an animal, and not even a particularly smart one. Still, the tiny thing staring right at him, because there is nothing going on behind them at all, is almost endearing. He pads through quietly before he notices some movement in his peripheral vision. He looks up. It's one of his girl, She doesn't see him. The narrower cone of vision on a Dzeden is playing to his advantage. A touch of axiom, and he slowly reverses which way gravity is pulling him. He lands on the ceiling, light as a shadow, and starts sneaking behind her. They pass over another series of wives, and he holds a finger to his lips, and they resist the urge to greet him, but begin climbing after him to follow him. As they cross the embassy, he has nearly 30 women directly behind him as he follows this one. The girl drops from the ceiling and opens the door, stretching as she does so, and her cone of vision finally reaches back far enough and, "What?" she exclaims in shock, and Herbert laughs as he allows gravity to start to take him back in the normal direction. He slowly falls downwards, and land behind her as the swarm rushes down the walls. He gives the poor girl he just tailed a hug before everyone else joins in. Before the interrogations can begin, he becomes aware of Ambassador Hlela returning, and she gives him a look. If he wasn't so familiar with the Zedden, he wouldn't even see it, but she needs to speak with him and is not being subtle about it. She weaves around the happy pack of her citizens and gold-plated PR wins and looks down at him. If this is about the massive scan, then I'm afraid NDAs will be involved, he says. I'm willing to sign. Is it also related to the giant slobe? Beyond the most general terms, yes. And what can you tell me without having to sign anything? The poor woman was trapped on level 1 of a spire for so long that she couldn't orient herself and got as high as she could to just feel sunlight and breathe clean air again, he says before nodding. No malice, at worst mania in that she was just so happy she wasn't thinking things through. I won't say harmless, but compared to what someone that strong and large can do, pretty benign. Why was she trapped? Health reasons. Any more than that, and we're at NDAs again, Herbert says. Also, if you want to talk to someone about this, it's best you contact the Undaunted Intelligence Division. I'm off duty now. Are we in danger? Not anymore. I don't love that answer. Neither do I, Herbert replies. I see. Well, good to have you back and out of whatever danger it was. Are you planning on being shot again? You're barely into puberty at this point, and to be frank, I wasn't planning on being shot in the first place, let alone shot in such a way as to drop down in age, he says. But I've also put in a request that if I get an emergency recall like that again, to wait until I have cloned organs ready before pulling me out of stasis and not just enough blood to keep my brain alive. Do you have to say the most horrifying things imaginable in that voice? I could try and force it down, but I've been reliably told it makes it worse. Herbert answers. Try anyways, Hlela says. All right, Herbert says before coughing into his fist a few times to try and force things. Is this? He doesn't get to finish what he was saying as he apparently just hit another level of cute, and Ambassador Hlela grabs him for a cuddle. Too much. Got it. The Jameson family curse continues. So I sign here and here, witnessed here and here, and why is this form so complicated? Diana asks in frustration. Harriet and Jurgen had both been called back for a debriefing, and now she was filling in the paperwork to gain citizenship. What she was promised was very nice. Out the gate, it was 2 months of time for mental issues and fully paid during it. Following that, she was getting an easy job requiring fast movement. And considering she climbed to the top of a spire under her own power from the quartermark at most, and did it all in less than 10 minutes, meant she was very, very fast. There's a knock on the office door, and her lawyer looks up. Who is it? Friend of your client, just checking in to see if she's doing all right. Jurgen's voice rumbles out, and Diana smiles. Yes, just... the paperwork is so involved. Blame the bad actors. A lot of women want to be a part of the nation headed by men, but don't seem to get that we're a real polity and not walking fetish bait, her lawyer says. Oh, that makes a lot of sense, sadly. Most women don't think past a couple of days at most sometimes. I was like that before I was forced to think about things in the long term. Diana admits somewhat ruefully. A problem a lot of us have. Can I come in now? It's cold and there are wolves after me. Jurgen pleads. There are what? He's cold? It's a reference, her lawyer says. Do you want to let him in? This is your time after all. What happens if I say no? Diana asks in a teasing tone directed towards Jurgen. The wolves will get me, he says in a sad tone. What's a wolf? Diana asks. A feral canine. Imagine if a Lopen was instead a feral animal that was always on all fours, and you have the general idea. Her lawyer replies, Are wolves even a threat to you? That's the problem. I don't want to hurt the little dogs by accident, Jurgen replies, and Diana laughs at the sudden reversal of the silly situation. Oh, we can't have that, can we? Get in here, you giant goofball, Diana says in a happy tone, before the door opens and Jurgen contorts himself to fit through before standing upright. The expanded space is useful, but we still don't have it on the doors? Jurgen asks. Structural reasons, I'm told. Why didn't you just teleport in? I didn't think about it. Jurgen answers and Diana laughs. Yes, yes, very funny. So how are things working out? Once this is filled out, I'm going to be not only an undaunted citizen, but I'm on paid vacation for mental health reasons. So I get 2 months to myself, Diana says, and Jurgen lets out a low whistle. That's a good deal. We try to do that. There's no position to be blackmailed if you keep things on the up and up. Imagine that, the lawyer remarks with a grin. Give people a good deal and they'll work hard for another one. But what happens if someone screws with this? Takes advantage of it? They're called prisoners and criminals. People have been trying to take advantage of our good nature, and they're all stomped down on with all the force we can muster. Simply put, we make examples of people who pull that kind of nonsense. The lawyer says, and Diana gives him an odd look. Have you personally made sure that the people who break with us get it? Yes, in fact, in your own contract, you're subjecting yourself to undaunted law and judgment. We have very little patience for people that want to take advantage of our good intentions. The lawyer says, well, considering there's health care, protection, employment, and more, to say nothing of the good company, I have no issue with this so long as the laws don't suddenly change and make normal things illegal, Diana says. Good to hear. And if something like that happened, a lot of soldiers would be asking very pointed questions with rifle in hand, the lawyer notes. Good. Wait, really? The soldiers would rebel en masse? Standard training. Obedience is important, but the moment it's blind, there's a problem. Immoral orders are to be ignored and then reported. Someone trying to force them is a greater enemy than any external threat, and to be treated as such regardless of rank or standing, Jurgen states. If the admiral himself tells me to hurt a child, I will hurt him instead unless he has a very good explanation. Such as, not actually being a child? You've heard of Agent Jameson, rejuvenated into his childhood and still insanely deadly. Jurgen says, so you couldn't take him in a fight? If I'm fighting him, I'm also likely fighting someone who got their finger hovering over the button for a really, really big boom, and he'll extract last second. We have guys crazy enough to call danger close on the regular. I have no doubt that Herbert's one of them. I mean, Jesus Christ, the man was shot clean through the chest, lost nearly a quarter of his mass, and was back at work the next damn day. I'd want a week after that, at least. Well, good to know that my little brother is unusual in his insanity, Harriet says, leaning in. You know these doors are supposed to be closed behind you, right? This isn't as much of a private area if it's not, you know. Agent Dubois, anything you need me to look up? Nothing pressing. I've got some time to myself. So I decided to poke my nose in, Harriet says. But that's also not a no. This is low priority stuff anyways. A few backup personas that need another pair of eyes on them to double check. Wait, what are you doing? I'm making some extra names and faces to go with them. Nothing too serious. I'm one of the girls that goes around and makes sure the local secret handshake club isn't a pack of drooling idiot or raging lunatics. Then I move on. But people talk, so I need to give them new names and faces all the time, Harriet says. Oh, so you're a spy too? You're the only one in the room who's not a spy, and if you want, I can change that really quickly, Harriet offers, and Diana dissolves into helpless giggling. She literally dissolves into giggling as she loses coherency with her form and drips onto the floor before catching herself and reshaping her form into a dark blue gel woman with a flowing dress on. I think I'll pass. I really need that time for my mental health. You know, get used to moving in places where there's an actual sky again. Speaking of places, is there anything from your old home that you'd like to have brought back? No. And I called my old apartment owner and learned all my stuff was tossed on the street when I couldn't keep paying rent. So I don't have anything of my own at this point, beyond my life and freedom. But that's enough for me. Okay, girl, we're going shopping. Jurgen, come, you're the pack mule, Harriet says imperiously. But I have to finish my paperwork, Diana protests. I just need 2 more signatures, the lawyer states. Good, sign it off and let's go. Time to get you beyond surviving and back to living, Harriet says. Do I get a say in this? Jurgen asks in an amused tone. Not at all. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 24. For newest England, the window pops open with ease. The cold mountain air means that there are few, if any, insects here. So there's no need to bother with a screen. A handsome man finds his way through the gap and slots the window back into place. His leather gloves prevent fingerprints from being left anywhere, and his suit completely covers him from the neck down. He gives away no axiom presence, not even disturbing the local axiom as he moves. The sensors keyed to such nonsense miss him entirely. A failure of security. Not that he minds. Slack enemies make for safe missions, usually, so long as this base hasn't been built to the shoddiest of shoddy standards. He darts into a nearby bathroom as he hears some guards on the approach and simply listens. The local language is still rather foreign to his ears. However, he has always had a wonderful gift for deciphering them. The two women vaguely chatter about their communicators informing them about an alarm, but they were finding nothing to arouse their suspicion, and they quickly convince themselves that it was merely a glitch in the system. They begin to move away, and he begins to follow closely behind and just outside their peripheral vision. They simply throw the next door open and do not bother to close it themselves, as they allow it to close under its own power, giving the man plenty of time to simply follow them through. Still, the security is a touch tighter than he thought if they're alerted to his entry, even if they've dismissed it. Something to be mildly concerned about. Mildly is the operative word. This base was fairly low on the importance hierarchy, provided that there wasn't a second hidden area beyond the first one he was already aware of and making his way towards. A sudden approach of a guard from an unexpected direction is swiftly dealt with by several factors. First off, he looks like he's already captured as he's following two guards closely, and his unruffled nature makes him look distinctly like a guest. However, he can't allow the guard to talk, and he grabs her around the face and uses a favorite of police forces the galaxy over. A knockout axiom technique. Low energy, low profile, doesn't attract attention. Usually, the guards turn and see him carrying the other guard. "Pardon, dear girl needs some help getting back to her post after last night," he says with a wink. There is a pause as his blatant lie is processed, but before either of them can think, they're forced to catch their fellow guard, and as they stagger, his hands reach their faces and they drop. A quick check of nearby doors finds him a closet of janitorial supplies, and all three of them fit in nicely. Minus their work communicators, of course. He quickly checks those, and of course, they're not password protected. Why is it that security, a job ostensibly about violence in at least some capacity, never considers that they'll be the victim of it? Youthful arrogance from people likely many, many centuries his senior. Always a charming weakness to take advantage of. Nothing interesting is on the communicators. Just a few patrol routes that are now minus a few soldiers. A few passcodes he already knows, and an inaccurate summation of the forces on the base. Apparently, the higher-ups prefer ignorance in their troops, which is not a good sign. Holding on to the stupid and pliant may make the day-to-day simple, but it means unusual issues, such as a devilishly handsome Brit, can and will disrupt and destroy things all the easier. Bully for them, he notes as he slips through a doorway, limbos under one of the few motion detectors he's aware of, and continues on his way without breaking stride. A few more turns across the cheap carpeting and around the white walls, and he finds himself in front of a doorway that has an unusually complicated keypad. He quickly takes out a modified pen and gives it a few twists. The axiom around it twists, and he uses it to press several buttons in quick sequence. The axiom, baffling of his newly made toy, tricks the scanning portions of the keypad into thinking it's the right person. Again, the galaxy's mono-focus on axiom to the exclusion of all else plays against it. Were it reading for fingerprints, DNA, or even a pressure plate with a weight range in front of the door, it would not have been fooled. Unfortunately for his opponent, the door pops open without any protest and he moves through. That's when the alarm goes off and he glances above the door. Another sensor activated by the door opening and evidence of a laudable level of paranoia. Well, that wasn't on the blueprint. He doesn't hurry though. He knows this routine and he doesn't bother deactivating the baffling on the pen as he sticks it in his breast pocket. A small army of soldiers pour in from every direction, and he merely smiles as he holds up his hands. "Well then, that's me caught." They hold him at coil gun point and escort him down and even deeper into the base. He's brought before a Quarren woman who stands atop a platform and near literally barking orders at numerous technicians working at their computer bays. This was not the hidden he uncovered. which means this is going to be even more entertaining than he assumed. Her dark red outfit matches well with her dark fur. He cannot keep the idea of a Soviet Rottweiler out of his mind, and he subconsciously grows more comfortable. He can handle women, he can handle dogs, and he can handle communists all. The only thing even mildly odd about this situation is that he's handling a communist dog woman, or at least one dressed like one, which is rather bizarre, but he's done business in more unusual themed lounges. So the three have finally sent a semi-competent spy. Perhaps they assumed you could flirt your way deeper, but the loyalty of my girls is absolute, the commanding officer says, stepping in front of him. Despite the platform placing her boots at roughly eye level and forcing him to look directly up at her, he can only marvel at how small she really is. While the true-to-life Napoleon was of average height and only looked small due to his enormous bodyguards and spurious, if hilarious, propaganda, the term Napoleon complex seemed most fitting here. The woman is short even by Koiran standards, but is making a point of being head and shoulders taller than even the Agela guards in the room. Well, I got rather far regardless. If not for that unexpected sensor above the door, the coil gun would be pointed at you and not me, he says simply. Very true. Speaking of, search him, she barks out, near literally, and he is quickly frisked. His expanded pockets are found, and a large coil rifle is extracted. Several plasma grenades, numerous fake IDs, keys, and finally a pamphlet on how to deal with having one's physiology altered to fit a human. The commander takes all this in before reaching down in person and pulling the pen out of his pocket. You think me a fool? She asks. Click, click, twirl. I think you short, he answers, and the Koiran nods to one of the guards. A fist the size of his head slams into his stomach, and he moves with the blow and exhales, not only softening the hit, but making it look far worse. The commander is satisfied as she holds up a hand. Click, clench, click, click. That's enough. The image is quite clear as to what this is. The commander states, click, click, click. Is it now? He asks to prod her on. Just a little more. Yes, she says, twirling the pen in her fingers. Click. Do you even know who I am? Vatras Sheena Blythe. Vatras being the local rank for a shared planetary commander post. He rattles off truthfully, but the fun thing about the truth is that you can lie with it. Oh, drop the act. You slipped up. The pamphlet? You just had the operation done, haven't you? She asks, and he flinches. Yes, Vatras Blythe knows all before her. My eyes can pierce any deception. You're no human, just a tret man, possibly even a prostitute, a distraction to make me look for enemies I do not have in directions I would be better off ignoring. Yes, you are just a fool given minimal training and some toys. The only question is, by who? I will never talk, he says, and she titters as she fiddles with the pen. Click, click. Oh, come now. They clearly haven't paid you enough for putting up with this. What amount of money is worth paying, she asks. Give up your employer. I can find a use for a man so appetizing. Wouldn't you rather feel my guards' soft caress over the barrel of their coil guns? Click, twirl. Just give me a name. Which one was it? Vatras Milena? Vatras Brahmastra? Or was it Vatras Shun? She asked, clicking the pen between their names. But not after the final one. He holds her gaze for a few moments, feigning a breaking scene right in front of her before looking down. She smiles. He begins before suddenly pulling down and away. The pen detonates, but not as his first such pen did. The area is suddenly hit with a micro-null burst, and the guards around him suddenly struggle to stand as he moves in a blur and has a very punchy few moments. He ends by pulling Vatras Blythe over the railing and putting her in a headlock as he pulls out a weapon he had hidden on himself that hadn't been in an expanded pocket and therefore had been missed in the search. A 9mm pistol might be a touch underpowered compared to coil guns, but it was more than potent enough. All right, now I do hate to be so rude, but being human is useful for more than mere endurance and seduction after all. Now, I am on a schedule and do hate to be late. You there on the computer. Yes, you, Madame Pavarus, you look rather distinct. What access do you have? He asks as he carries his hostage over forgetting his effects, which were pointedly made in the main cities of Vatras Brahmastra, and carrying on with his mission. Just minor logistical. I, I, she stutters. Excellent. Download where all your Magrano stores are onto that chit sticking out of the computer and he begins to order before more guards show up. He holds up his still partially limp hostage and pistol for them to see. Ah. They pause and he glances back at the technician. Madam, please, you would not believe how hard it is to clean blood out of this suit, but I will if I have to. He presses the pistol a little harder into Vatress Blythe's head, and she squeals in protest. Before she thrashes, he cocks the gun pointedly, making sure she can fully hear the mechanism prime. He then looks back to the technician. Madam, please. He watches the files get transferred over. But that's not the important part. He memorizes a trinity of addresses and nods as he takes the chit. Now then, it would be in everyone's best interest if... He begins before more guards show up, and he once again presents his increasingly furious hostage, who has been remarkably silent to them, and they pause. Then his hostage attempts to duck, and he goes with her, dodging the sniper fire. She's still communicating with her guards, despite not saying a word. He would have to go over his intel sources again. They miss the implant the woman now very clearly has. She squirms away, and as he grabs for her, she tries to dodge. But his actual target was the pen that he takes back before he bolts. Shoot the bastard! Vatress Blythe screams, and the air is thick with metal. No, not my computers. Do not damage my hardware. Good. So she is that stupid. He uses it to quickly bolt through the lab and pockets his pen again. The data chit is not null protected, and neither is the template for the pattern in it. But neither matters. He clicks it 3 times and starts to move further as he counts down under his breath. A Kruga guardswoman erupts out of a doorway in ambush and levels her coil gun at him. Just as the pen goes off and the null drains it of its power, her of her strength, and allows him to keep moving as she uselessly flops around to try and get him. He dodges with ease. Once he leaves the null effect, he clicks the pen again and prepares another. More guards are on him too quickly, and he has to duck, weave, force the barrels of weapons away from himself, and then the pen goes off and they drop. He sprints. He's rapidly approaching the known hidden part of the structure, the one he's been able to study. His hands fly over a keypad, and he punches in a code he's memorized to open the door. On the other side, he slams it, inputs the wrong code in to force it into emergency lockdown, and makes his way down the stairs and into the hidden hangar bay. Across the bay, there are a dozen different aircraft, and he smiles at the sight. He has a few moments. Time for what his superior officers once titled Masterson Malarkey. They breach the lockdown on the door in 2 minutes and 32 seconds. Just in time to see every single armored air car, civilian air car, and undercover air car take off all at once out the open hangar bay doors. Vatress Blythe screams in frustration before immediately turning to her guards and issuing commands. None of them noticing that not a single one of the air cars has a person. All of them are running on autopilot, and the source of her wrath is comfortably climbing down the cliff face and quickly reaching a small stash she has left in a crevice. He straps on the recall beacon and pushes away from the cliff face, blowing a kiss to the thoroughly compromised base and teleporting away. He lands on a large and thickly padded mat in his safe house some many thousands of kilometers away and simply smirks to himself as he luxuriates on a job well done. Or rather, a job mostly well done. He still has one little touch of chaos to sow. It feels so very good to be back, Sir Philip Bernard Masterson says to himself as he sits up and then heads over to a computer nearby. He instructs a drone to play out a message in text-to-speech after using a public phone before entering the nearest garbage can and self-destructing. And there we have it. Now to get this false nose off and a proper seat for the show. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 25. For Newest England. It's not quite coffee, certainly no proper tea. The local fools think it's a weed, something to teach them later. But the little berry brew blends him in and pairs well with the cookie he bought. He had chosen the planet for a reason, after all, and to be frank, it just offended him that they wasted so much good tea. It was like the Americans, but far, far worse. Not even a display of independence, just flagrant waste and ignorance. Still, he was taught his manners as a child and uses them still. The pinky is up as he sips his drink, browsing the news and looking for the telltale signs of chaos. Only a few were there. Local price increases in metals, a couple of military exercises more than normal to bring otherwise sluggish troops to war readiness, a few companies losing stock value. Certain goods, after all, depreciate in wartime after all, mostly because they get requisitions and forced to sell at just a hairline above manufacturing costs. And that's if the local government is generous. Despots tend not to be, and the crashing of a local silk-producing company stock has him nod. Someone's trying to make friends and damn the consequences. That they could also be incorporated into uniforms was also an important point. The small-minded military men and women of the world and galaxy were the same no matter where they went, wanting the best for themselves and their peers, while simply expecting everyone who can protest to be much the same or simply not care. A flicker of movement pulls him out of his train of thought as something seems to finally be happening down the way. A simple townhouse was actually holding a rather large store of equipment, munitions and other such gear, Magrano as the local language called it. His little slips in the hidden base were all very deliberate after all. After all, why bother blaming a party halfway across the galaxy when it looked like your local rivals were trying to be clever? Everyone falls to some form of confirmation bias, especially the paranoid. You give them a quarter of a reason to think that they're as persecuted as they think they are, and they'll swallow any lie, no matter how far-fetched or ludicrous. And it looks like Vatras Blythe is about to get another confirmation about her fellows making moves against her. Earlier, he had implicated Brahmastra. Now he's implicating Shun and Milena. So very odd, this world. Nearly Asian-sounding names all over the place, but a downright Soviet dress sense with a nearly Indian architectural style. He mutters to himself. Still, the appearance and sound of things matters little. It's the character of a place. The soil is so perfect for tea that a nearly perfect parallel evolution had emerged to grow in abundance. The only difference was the local stuff grew faster and was very resistant to being removed. It certainly tasted the same, though, and that was the important part. The agents of Vatras Shun slip into the entrance of the Magrano stash and get themselves caught on all the lovely cameras and recording devices in there. A few minutes later, they rush out to wait for backup, because it's a full-on Magrano stash that is not their own in their territory. The kind of thing that is usually only found on a prelude to war. That's 3. Perhaps I can get 4, Philip notes to himself as he watches the drama unfold, and then finishes off his drink as the expected officers of Vatras Milena arrive. And that's 4. Blythe has been spied on by Brahmastra, and her stash was found on Milena's territory by Shun's agents. An excellent little knot. Time to tie another. He leaves behind his pay and a tip and then proceeds down the street to where the chaos is. Humming to himself, he has every appearance of the handsome fool, the sort of man who just drifts through life and expects everything to end well. Because it has ended well. Temptation to both the higher and lesser nature of the women watching him. Stand back, citizen. Oh, wow. Pardon, citizen, but you need to step back. The officer of Milena says, and he gives her an airy smile. And what's this about? He asks as his next little scheme starts playing. He has the attention of both women in his hands clasped behind his back and around a controller. A tiny drone takes off from a nearby roof as he begins conversing with the women. I'm afraid that is on a need-to-know basis, and you do not need to know. The left officer of Milena, a Panceros woman who is rising to stand up straight, says, the little bit of balancing she has to do means she completely misses the distortion of the mostly cloaked descending drone slowly coming down. What don't I need to know? He asks simply as the drone descends, as nothing more than a tiny flicker in the air, akin to a heat distortion. Not even uncommon this time of year. What we're doing here, citizen? The Panceros insists. And what are you doing here? He asks as the drone finishes applying a tiny magnetic beacon. A press of a button and it rises up to a height 4 meters below standard aircar levels and begins heading home for its next payload. He slips the controller into his back pocket. Something that is not your concern. Are you saying it's wrong to be worried about others? You both look like you're having a terrible day, and I thought I might help, he says, and both women glance to each other. Whatever they expected, it had not been that. No. I'm sorry, we're on duty. Please leave, you're rather distracting. Oh, very well then. Have a good day, he says before giving a slight bow, turning around and walking away. His jacket is covering up his back pocket nicely, so even though they're staring at his rump, neither can make out the controller for the sabotage he just committed. Once he gets some distance away, he hears both women exclaim several harsh curses in their language as they discover the tracker. The tracker made distinctly in Blythe's territory, but is sending messages to a base he was aware of in Brahmastras. Need to set up a cute little loop for rope to go through, and I'll have another knot, he says before turning as the crashing blasts of coal gunfire echoes through the air. The officers of Malena have found the agents of Shun. To say the agents are superior combatants is an understatement, but they're not good enough to outright kill the officers as both women dive for cover and start howling for backup. He gets some cover of his own and watches from around a corner. Further officers arrive in short order. Say what you will about this place. They have excellent police response times. Just in time to see the agents try and make a break for it, and for everything to devolve into a police chase. Capital, he notes to himself happily as he walks out of his cover and walks up to the now thoroughly forgotten Magrano stash, and clicks 3 times at a familiar little pen even as he slips his gloves back on. Before the cameras can see him, the null slams out and knocks it down. A chair and some reaching, and he starts tearing it apart before using the chair as visual cover to get under the next one without being identified. He repeats the process for the next 4 cameras and then has the entire munition stash to himself. Oh, pardon, Magrano, I must remember to develop a local accent, he notes in a local planetary accent. Then he plucks out the listening devices left over in the stash and crushes them. Sit on the an a little longer. The local fools are basically trying to talk with socks in their mouth after all. The final listening device is crushed with that bit of goodness sent, and he finally avails himself of the well-marked, well-understood, and extremely incriminating weapons and equipment. He can't take too much, but he can easily take more than enough to make any Cold War between the women go red hot. After all, one side finding an enemy stash in their location, the enemy trying to reclaim it, finding parts of it missing, and them turning up at the sites of incidents in the territory of the 3rd and 4th? Oh me, oh my, doesn't that look like entertainment? The whole planet was a poorly mismanaged mess. The 4 Vatras were at the edge of a despotic empire and had pulled of a coup to take a planet for themselves, before immediately falling into infighting. Then they were ignored as everything went to shit, and without an external force to pressure them, internal divisions widened to the point of a Cold War between the 4. And now an Englishman was tossing matches into this oil spill of a mess. And keep our laws. God save the Queen, he softly sings to himself as he checks a case and smiles. He tags it with a small device after deactivating the trackers and sends it to his safe house. He hears footsteps rushing up the stairs and smirks. Too late, my dear. He grabs a single final object and uses his own axiom skill to teleport across the way so that he's just a figure in the distance. He's already disabled the cameras in the area, and the make of his shoes becomes rather important as he makes sure to grind in good and distinctive tracks into the rooftop rock garden. He fiddles with the device, induces a deliberate failure in it, and then breaks the tracker. He then drops his latest frame job along with the rest of the evidence he leaves behind and is gone. The first thing he does afterwards is take off his current shoes and ensure they're destroyed. He needed to make sure that those tracks only appear in the safe house and outside of it. After all, that particular company was very local and very, very distinctive. That done, he preps the kettle to quickly boil him some water and has some tea. Just watching the news as things turn away from how several local festivals are going well to them suddenly being canceled. Oh dear, how did that happen? Did a hostile power take interest? Oh dear, it appears that the Vatras are at an all-time high for hostility. Fear that war will break out between them at any moment. Seems like quite the time for another option to become available, he notes before taking another sip. After this cup. In the morning, a communicator activates due to an incoming call. A calloused and scarred hand reaches for it a few times before grabbing it. The armored form of a Playtan woman reveals herself as she turns over and activates the device fully. Yes, what is it? I apologize for waking you, ma'am, but I am your lunch date." "What? Lunch date? We need to talk, and I'm treating you to lunch for it," he says, and she blinks a little before brushing her blonde hair out of her face. "Wait, what's going on?" "You'll see at lunch, that lovely little cafe, 3 blocks, form your home. Be there, ask for Mr. Wetsworth." She blinks to herself a little and checks the time. She slept in again. Because why not? When your job prospects were as solid as quicksand and you haven't heard back from anyone in weeks. Why bother going to bed early or rising early either? She has an hour until lunch, and if someone wants to buy her a meal. Then the caller was a man. Why would a man call her? She has little to offer and less appeal. No, she's not starving. But she has no prospects. Not since the old way was destroyed and she lost her everything. Nothing like having a woman's everything taken in a trumped-up trial and forced verdict of guilty. She resists clenching a fist at that memory. No amount of attacking someone would help her. She can't fight an army. She can't take back her homeworld. The Laveron she was born and raised on was gone, had been gone for 20 years, and she just had to live with that. Everyone had failed. Although, truth be told, Laveron had died when the Empire of Gavali was born. It just took a generation for it to set in. With that depressing thought, she has no more desire to sleep and forces herself out of bed and splashes some water on herself in the bathroom. A bit of cold wetness on her face and to slick back her hair before looking miserably into the mirror. Nothing to do in the day, no hope for things getting better. But perhaps a free meal with a man? Maybe. That might make the day all right. First on of those in a while. Former Commander Shelley Tumblebriar of the now destroyed and gutted Laveron Defense Forces leaves her apartment in some of her better clothing. And when she arrives at the cafe, she stops dead at the sight of an incredibly handsome man with feathered hair sipping a hot drink. His smile is dazzling as he beckons her over, and she walks to him as if in a daze. "Mr. Wetsworth?" she asks in surprise. "For now, please sit. I've been told the local gallery salads are delightful," he says, gesturing to the chair opposite of him. "They are," she says as she sits down across from him. What's going on? Men like this don't just ask random women for dates. They're kept safe. They're kept beautiful by well-regarded and wealthy families. Why is he here? What does he want from her?